joining us today. We wanted to provide you this educational workshop in the safety of your own home. In today's environment, we're trying to look out for everyone's best interests as much as possible. Today, we're going to be doing a class on Social Security. You'll see the lovely picture of Mr. Dowd. He's the president of Dowd and Associates. He's been a retirement planner for over 30 years. He's also registered as a National Social Security advisor. I work in his office, and he's been an amazing mentor to me, extremely well informed. Without further ado, here's John.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Social Security class that we're going to be doing online. So this is something totally different to me. As Keith mentioned, I've been doing these types of things for many years. And this is the first time I'm doing something virtually, but this is the new reality. Again, we want to welcome everybody here. We have a lot to go through, a lot of information to present. The first thing I'm going to do is suggest you get a pen and a pad to be able to write down questions that you might want to go over with us later on. You see, this presentation is two-part. One is this first one that we're doing online, the webinar. The second part of the presentation is we're going to set up a one-on-one appointment to answer all of those questions that you may have about your own personal situation. So we're not able to take questions and answers during this presentation for compliance reasons, but we want to make sure that everybody is up to date and knows, has enough information to be able to make an informed, intelligent decision as to what is best for them. So without further ado, we're going to get started right away because we have a lot to cover in a very short period of time. Okay, here we go. As most of you probably realize, Social Security is very complex today. It's so much different than it was for our parents or grandparents if they were able to get Social Security. At age 65, they went down to Social Security, they applied, and they started getting a check. Well, today there are multiple claiming strategies, 81 age combinations, and more than 567 different sets of calculations to consider when determining how to apply for benefits. Folks, by making the wrong decision in some circumstances, people could lose over $100,000 in Social Security benefit during their retirement years. So what is Social Security to the average wage learner? Well, they tell us that Social Security will cover approximately 40% of our retirement needs. What that means is the other 60% to have a safe, comfortable retirement has to come from other sources, from IRAs, 401k, plan distributions, 403bs, other things, other accumulation vehicles that you may have had during your working time. But now that you're going into retirement, we have to see how that will fit into your total plan. I don't know if you recognize this lady, probably not, but this is Ida Mae Fuller from Vermont. Ida Mae was the very first person to actually receive a Social Security check at age 65. She put in about $22 a month for a couple of years. And at age 65, she started getting a check for $22 a month, which lasted for her lifetime. And believe it or not, that was until she reached the age of 100. So for 35 years, she got that check. So unfortunately, the actuaries from the very beginning didn't have things correctly. And that's why Social Security has to be continually adjusted and changes have to be made to try to meet the needs, especially with all the baby boomers, 78 million going into retirement. But will it be enough? Will it be enough to meet our needs? What about income sources do you have for your retirement? Are any of those sources guaranteed to be there through your retirement years like Social Security is? So there's going to be three pieces of the puzzle we're going to talk about today regarding Social Security. We're going to talk about determining how your Social Security benefit would be, understanding what options are available, and again, maximizing your lifetime benefit. So I don't know if you received a Social Security statement or you ever read one, but it's important to get, and I'll show you in a minute how to get that. But a Social Security statement, it summarizes your earnings that were subject to payroll taxes. It shows how much you and your employer paid into the system, and it estimates your retirement benefits based on retiring at different ages. PIA, personal insurance amount. That's the value that it shows at your full retirement age. So in your Social Security statement, when you get it, it's important to read the whole thing. Because on the last page of Social Security, it shows the listing of the income or the wages that you earned during your working career. And so it's Social Security with a very complex formula, averages those taking the top 35 years of index earnings and averaging those to determine what's your PIA, your primary insurance amount, what your at full retirement age. Why do I say it's important to check those over? You know, a assistant that works for me, she went to Social Security to check her Social Security benefits. And as she was reading the last page, she noticed there were actually 2 years left out while she was in the military. Well, she didn't correct that. When they did her averaging, they're going to be zeros put in. That's all counted as part of the years. So that would have drastically lowered her Social Security payment when it comes time to receive it. You see, people make mistakes, believe it or not. You know, I remember a few years ago, a client asked me to get them a quote for a $100,000 life insurance policy. So I put it in the notes and I passed it on to my assistant, and she got the quote for me. When the quote came in, the premium for that $100,000 life insurance policy said $33,000 per year. Imagine. Well, I realized something had to be wrong. So I went back in my notes and checked what I had written. And what I actually did was I asked my assistant to get me a quote for $1 million. I mistakenly added a zero to the information. Well, the same thing with your Social Security information. Somebody has to input that data. And if one year you may have made $100,000, but somebody leaves a zero out and they have it listed as 10,000 instead of 100,000, that in itself can reduce your Social Security drastically. So you need to look at that. If anything looks awry, you need to try to get it corrected as soon as possible. Because after Social Security checks start coming in, it is much, much more difficult to try to get those changes set up. So go online at www.ssa.gov, my account, and there you can review your Social Security and Medicare benefits. You can make changes to your addresses and change your direct deposit data if you're already receiving a check. That's important to do. You'll need to know your name, of course, date of birth, Social Security number. But you also have to put in your mother's maiden name. Once that's done, they'll send you a message with a password that you can go back in and open up your account. So we're going to talk about some different terms that's important to understand, important to know. We're going to talk about eligible versus entitled, WEP and GPO, cost of living adjustments, claiming age. When can you claim Social Security? What if you want to keep on working after you make your claim? Are those benefits taxable? And what about spousal benefits? That's another real important thing that most married couples, even divorced couples, have to consider in deciding when and how to take their benefits. Common claiming strategies, we're going to go over some of those. We can't go through many. We're going to be cutting this presentation a little bit shorter than we do in person, just to make sure we get it into the time frame allotted. So, eligible versus entitled. So what is eligible? An eligible worker is one who has accumulated the minimum number of quarters of work to receive a Social Security benefit, and they have to be at least age 62. So the minimum number of credits that someone needs to be able to get a check on their own working career is 40. If you do not have 40 credits, you will not receive any Social Security based on your own working history. Entitled is a worker who has applied for benefits. So this is somebody who is eligible. Then they've called Social Security and gone down there and they've actually applied. But it doesn't make any difference whether they're actually receiving a benefit or may have suspended them. And we'll go through reasons why somebody might want to do that in the future. So WP, EP, and GPO. What this is the windfall elimination provision. This reduces benefits if you receive a pension from a federal, state, or local government based on work where Social Security taxes weren't taken out of your pay. So the unions negotiated a contract to give you more money up front, but money was not put into Social Security so that it can drastically reduce your benefits at retirement time. The GPO, the government pension offset, that reduces your spouse or widower's benefits if you receive a pension again from a federal, state, or local government based on work where you did not pay Social Security taxes. So if you're in that situation, take your pen and your pad and write that down. And when we speak with you directly, you'll be able to ask questions on that and we'll help explain it in more detail for you. So cost of living adjustments. So what is cost of living? What is it supposed to do? Well, cost of a living is supposed to provide inflation protection by helping maintain the purchasing power of Social Security income. I say supposed to because it's really not based on inflation or the purchasing power. This is a list of the adjustments that Social Security has made over the years since 1975. But if you look in the bottom left-hand corner there, it'll show you it says since 1975, it's been based on the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. So what they do is they go back 3 years and look at the third quarter of the wages of the clerical workers and urban wage earners. Then they go back to last year's third quarter and they say, did the wages go up? Well, if the wages didn't go up, guess what? There's no cost of living adjustment. And depending upon how much they go up will determine the amount of cost of living adjustments they will add to your Social Security benefit. And if you look at the chart, you can see in 2016, there was no increase. Now, I don't know about you, but I know the cost of things that I was buying did go up in 2016. But because it's not based on that, there was no cost of living adjustment. In 2020, this year, the cost of living adjustment, they did have one, 1.6%. But unfortunately, Medicare premiums went up over 5%. And so the actual check, after they took out the premiums for Medicare, reduced for a lot of people. Again, this has been going on since 1975, and they have not made any adjustments to the way they determine that. You do not want to consider or plan in your retirement that there is going to be a cost of living adjustment. When we do retirement plans for our clients, we never assume that's going to happen. Okay. So when is the earliest you can claim Social Security? Well, the earliest age, as most of you probably know, is age 62, but it might not be the best time. Full retirement age, and that's based on your date of birth. It can be anywhere from age 66 through age 67. So everybody on this call today may have a different full retirement age. because yours might be 66, it might be 67, but it also might be somewhere in between. It might be 66 in 1 month, 66 in 6 months. Those things are very important to know because it could affect a lot of different benefits depending upon when you decide to apply for yours. The latest age to apply for Social Security is age 70 because the benefit does not increase after age 70, even though it'll be the highest benefit you can get. So, when should you take it? The only way you can really determine that is by your own personal situation. Every situation is unique. If you knew your date of death, then it would probably be easy to determine when to take your Social Security benefits. But thank goodness most of us don't know that. But there are pros and cons to everything we do. So if you take your Social Security early at age 62, what will happen is you're going to receive benefits earlier, which is nice. You get a check coming in, possibly while you're still working. But again, it's the smallest check you're ever going to receive. And it's probably going to be reduced by 25% of what it would have been at your full retirement age. And remember, hopefully you're going to retire for many, many years. If you wait till full retirement age, that means you're going to get 100% of your full retirement benefit. So it's a higher check, and there's no penalty if you want to keep on working. And I'll go through that a little bit later. But of course, that means you're not going to be receiving any benefits from age 62 right until the full retirement age. Age 70, that's the highest monthly check you can get. Once again, there's no penalty if you're employed. However, there aren't any benefits from age 62 to age 70. So that could be 8 years of funds that you're not receiving. That doesn't mean it's good or bad. This is just the rules. You have to determine your own situation depending upon your health, your income needs, your retirement, and your working. So, a few more definitions to go through. These are important. Okay, deemed filing requires that a claimant filing any benefits before their full retirement age must file for all benefits available to them at that time. There's restricted application, which is available to workers who have reached full retirement age. What it does is allows them to restrict their application and take a spousal benefit in the meantime. But that's limited to a certain number of people based on your date of birth. And I'll go through that in a little while also. Okay. Voluntary suspension. That's available to workers who have reached full retirement age. But once suspended, the benefit can continue to earn delayed retirement credits. And what is that? Delayed retirement credits means from your full retirement age of 66 or 67, right up to age 70, your benefit will increase by 8% per year. Now, if you know another place we can get a guaranteed increase of income of 8%, let me know, because I want to include that in my planning for my clients. Spouses cannot collect during a suspension. So that means both of you would have to stop collecting your Social Security benefits if you were to suspend it. So at retirement time, or when it's time to think about Social Security, you have to make a decision. You have to decide, am I going to take Social Security early, or am I going to use some of the assets that I've accumulated to fill my income needs while delaying my Social Security benefits? Or you might say, no, I'm going to take my Social Security and maybe not touch my assets, allowing them to accumulate for the later part of my retirement. And sometimes, and more often, it might even be a combination of the two, where we take Social Security and then use some of the assets to fill any income gaps that you might have in retirement. Once again, as I said before, it's an individual decision. As Keith mentioned, I've been doing this for almost 40 years now. And every time a couple or an individual has come into my office, no matter how close or similar the situations, we always find something unique about their situation. And as fiduciaries, we have to do what is in your best interest. And that's how we have to advise you. So we have to have an understanding of your situation before we can make any suggestions as to what might be best for you. But in the end, it's your money, it's your Social Security, it's your decision. So, how working impact your Social Security benefits? Some people say, well, gee, I want to take my Social Security early, but I want to continue to working. Well, there are limits as to how much you can earn without penalties if you're under your full retirement age. So at age 62, if you wanted to continue working, the most you could earn is $18,240 in the year 2020 without reducing your Social Security benefit. However, if you make more than that, every $2 over that 18,000 will be reduced by $1. So what that means is some folks may decide to take the Social Security early, continue working, and actually have their Social Security reduced down to zero. But now they've locked in that figure at age 62. So once they reach full retirement age, because they applied for benefits, they'll only get the benefit that was available at age 62. At year, you're going to turn full retirement age. They allow you to earn a little bit more money. They allow you to earn up to $48,600. But even that can be reduced. For every $3 you make over that, they're going to reduce your Social Security benefit by $1. But after full retirement age, there is no limit on earnings. You can earn $1 million a year and not have your Social Security check reduced by one dime. So that's why we say it's important to understand all of these rules before you make a decision. Whether you're going to continue working or not working, all of that has to be thought about before you sign up and apply for Social Security benefits. You need to get some advice, you need to get some help from someone who really understands how all of this works. During the year you retire, as I said, you can make up to $48,600 until the day you turn full retirement age. After that point, there is no reduction in your benefit. So, is Social Security taxable? You know, we do these live classes, we'll ask a lot of questions, which unfortunately we're not able to do here. But one of the questions we will ask is Social Security taxable? And we're talking federal income taxes because every state is a little bit different in that regard. But whether or not Social Security is taxable is determined by what they call your provisional income. So provisional income is really the sum of everything you have coming in plus 1/2 of your Social Security check. So they take half of your Social Security check, they take wages if you're employed, any distributions from 401ks or IRAs, any interest and dividend income. You know what they also include? Tax-free municipal bond interest. Even though those municipal bonds may not be federally taxed, the interest they made is included in your provisional income. Any capital gains you may have from stocks, any pension payments, any taxable portion of inheritance is all added together to determine your provisional income. And then depending upon when you are filing as a single individual or filing jointly, determine how much of that Social Security income is actually taxable. So here's a table. So if you're single filing and your provisional income is under $25,000, that means you're not going to pay any federal tax on your Social Security. Now, remember, that's not all your income. That's your provisional income, because in that figure, they only include half of your Social Security check. If you're married, it has to be under 32,000. Now, if it goes up over 25 or over 32 for a single individual from 25 to 34,000, that means up to 50% of your Social Security is added to your income for tax purposes based on your tax rate. And if it's over 32,000 up to 44,000 for a married couple filing jointly, then up to 50%. But for a single person, if it gets over 34,000, up to 85% of your Social Security is added to your income, and over 44,000 for a married couple. So that can definitely have an effect on the amount of taxable income you have, and can often put you into a higher tax bracket because of that. So we try to make adjustments whenever possible to reduce the provisional income, if possible, depending upon someone's situation, if we can help them to reduce their taxes. And just a brief statement here on what part of what we do. We are a holistic organization. And so we do taxes for our clients here. We do investments, but we also have attorneys that help with the legal things. So it's all pieces of the puzzle that needs to fit together. These tables have been in existence since 1985. Imagine that. And I don't see anything on the horizon that's going to be changing that. The IRS wants more tax dollars when they can get them. So I don't see them making any changes, especially with what's going on in the economy today. So let's say if you were married and you required $40,000 just to maintain your standard of living, and one of you passes away, but the survivor may still need that $40,000, right? Because a lot of the basic expenses remain the same, whether it's one or two people. Taxes on the house, utilities, things of that nature don't go down. But you know what does happen? Your taxes are likely to go up. Because if you were making $40,000 filing jointly as a married couple, and up to 50% was taxable, well, now you're filing as a single individual and your income is over 34,000. That means up to 85% of your Social Security is now taxable. And in addition, now if you're filing singly, you only have one deduction, one standard deduction, not two. So that also can raise your taxes. See, all of these things in your planning have to be taken into consideration so that you can have a safe, comfortable, worry-free retirement. Now, can those things be reduced or sometimes even eliminated? Sure. There are different opportunities, different options you can take. One, you don't need to take your Social Security early necessarily. You can wait or suspend your benefit for later years. So if you're not receiving it, it's not taxable. Other things that you can do to reduce it: sources of income to calculate provisional income. There are actually programs out there where you can have income that you're not, or interest that you're not utilizing, deferred. And so you're not paying taxes on it while it's growing tax deferred. Wages, if you're employed. Well, you have to determine, is it worthwhile to work or not? Okay. Or do I want to cut down my hours somewhat to save on taxes? Distributions from 401ks and IRAs. Let me tell you a little bit about that because they've changed the law on that. It used to be age 70 and a half, you had to start taking a required minimum distribution. That was based on Table 590 of the IRS, and it's based on your life expectancy each year. As you get older, your life expectancy shortens, so the more you have to take out. Well, they stopped that at the end of last year, and anyone who had not already reached 70 and a half now does not have to take a distribution till age 72. So that might be another way of reducing your provisional income if you don't need that money to live on. Interest and dividend income, tax-free municipal bonds, depending upon how they're invested, can make a big difference. Capital gains. You could have a capital gains tax on stocks that was sold within your portfolio and still have all your portfolio decrease. Well, if there's a capital gain, that's included even if you lost money overall. Pension payments. I've had some clients that have worked for more than one employer that has a pension plan. And so they might decide to delay taking one of those pensions. And sometimes by delaying, they might even get a higher paycheck. Taxable portion of inheritance. Well, I know this may sound a little strange to some folks, but you don't have to accept the inheritance. No. Why wouldn't you do that? Well, every situation is different. But let's say your mom, your dad, your grandmother left you a $100,000 IRA and you're the primary beneficiary. And you're looking at that and you're saying, but gee, I have my things all in order. I've done a great retirement plan. I know where I stand. I don't really need those money. And I will want to possibly pass it on to my children or my grandchildren. Well, if they are listed as a secondary contingent beneficiary, you can refuse the inheritance and just pass it on to them. And likely they might be in a much lower tax bracket than you are, but it definitely won't be affecting their Social Security because they're not receiving anything at their current age. In addition, they have an option where they can possibly spread that out, the income from that, over a 10-year period to help lower the taxable portion. So any source of taxable income on top of that is all included to determine what your provisional income is and whether it's going to be taxed. Let's talk a little bit about spousal benefits, because this is something that is extremely important to most of our clients and most of the people who come to our classes. So in order to claim a spousal benefit, you must be at least age 62 or older. Unless you have a qualifying child in your care and you have been married for at least 1 year. So there are rules to all of these things in order for them to work. By a qualifying child, we mean a child who is under age 16 who's receiving disability benefits from Social Security. By the way, spousal benefit really comes down to getting a portion of your spouse's benefit instead of taking your own when that might be higher. And we'll explain that in a little bit more detail. If you do elect to receive a spousal benefit before your full retirement age, remember I said how important full retirement age is and knowing that? Your spousal benefit is going to be permanently reduced. Again, unless it's a qualifying dependent child. So before you make these decisions, please get together with somebody who understands these things to help you be informed so you can make an intelligent decision as to what might be best for you. So any of these things we've talked about to this point, please, something that you have a question on or something that comes to your mind, write it down on that pad I told you to take. And then when we do our one-on-one, I will do my best to try to answer those questions for you. Now, if you claim a spousal benefit, again, before full retirement age, you can't go back. You can't switch then to your own benefit at a later date, even if it was going to be higher. It's too late. You have to take whatever is higher when you actually apply for the benefits the first time. So if you start your benefit early, well, then you can possibly switch to a spousal benefit when you reach full retirement age, but it's going to be reduced because you took your benefit early. And we have a formula that we can help show you how much your benefit would be reduced by doing that. And so most likely it's going to be less than 50%. It can be low as 30%, 35%, all dependent upon when you took it out. In 2015, there was a bill passed called the Bipartisan Budget Act, and they started making some major changes to Social Security, which we knew they were going to have to do at some point, because it's coming to the point where they're taking less in taxes than they're actually paying out in benefits. Well, if that happens continuously, they don't make changes, that can cause the Social Security system to become insolvent and have to reduce benefits. And some of the older Social Security statements, you have them, read the first page. It explains some of that. So this was passed in October 2015. And one of the things they eliminated is what they called file and suspend. So that stopped as of April 2016. What that allowed someone to do is, when you reach full retirement age, you and your spouse, one of you could apply for their benefits. The other one could apply for a spousal benefit, allowing their own benefit to accumulate at 8% per year. And then at age 70, they could start taking their own benefit. And guess what? Your spouse could switch to their spousal benefit if it was higher than their own benefit. Well, that was a lot of money. I had one client who came in a number of years back in that regard, who had filed and suspended his, or didn't. Actually, he just didn't take his because he wanted his to accumulate to age 70. Well, I told him to go back to Social Security tomorrow, and he did. And I said, now you want to tell them to file and suspend. Well, his wife's benefit was $2,000 per month. They ended up sending him a check for $6,000 for the 6 months he missed on spousal benefits, and then gave him another check for $1,000 a month until he reached age 70, when he was able to switch over to his increased benefit, which was 132% more than it would have been at his full retirement age. File and restrict is similar, but that's fading out also. So depending upon your date of birth will depend upon whether it's something that you might be able to take advantage of. And I'm going to go through that a little bit because I have a feeling there may be callers on here who might be able to take advantage of that. And that's something you need to look into sooner than later and really get some advice on. So let's talk a little bit about divorce. If you are divorced, guess what? You still might be entitled to a spousal benefit. But again, there are certain rules and certain conditions in order to be able to do that. First, you have to be at least age 62. Remember, that's the earliest you're supposed to be able to collect Social Security. You have to have been married for at least 10 continuous years. So that means if you were married for 9 years and 9 months, you do not qualify to receive a spousal benefit on your ex-spouse's working history. If you were married for 5 years, got divorced, and then got remarried for 5 more years, you're not qualified because it was not continuous. Again, you have to remain unmarried. If you do get remarried, then you're going to lose that benefit. Your ex-spouse, in order for you to receive a benefit, has to be, remember we talked about the terms eligible and entitled? And remember, entitled was someone who was eligible, but actually applied for benefits, whether they actually were receiving them or not. So your ex-spouse has to be entitled. But what if they don't want to be? What if they just want to be nasty and say, no, I don't want my ex-spouse to be able to receive my benefits yet, so I'm not going to apply, even if I don't want the money? Well, you can become independently entitled under certain rules without your ex-spouse being entitled on their own. Your ex-spouse, number one, has to be age 62 or older. Your divorce has to have been finalized for 2 years. You can't do it as soon as you're divorced. It's a 2-year waiting period. And your own worker benefits would have to be less than 50% of your ex-spouse's primary insurance amount. And of course, that's only makes sense. You're not going to take less if you get more on your own benefit. All right. The Bipartisan Act in generally made the same thing, pretty much the same thing for married couples as divorced couples, except for the length of term you had to be married. Now, access to file and restrict again is available for anybody who was born prior to January 2nd, 1954. Now, I can't see your faces, so I don't know how old anyone is. But if you fit into that criteria, that category, please take your pad, write that down. It's something we're going to definitely need to speak with you about. So, what happens? Unfortunately, one of you are going to probably outlive the other. And so, what happens with survivor benefits when you become a widow or a widower? Well, you're going to be able to either collect your own benefits or 100% of your deceased spouse's benefits, whichever one is higher, whichever one is more. However, you have to be at least age 60. And if you do it at age 60, you're going to get a reduced benefit because it's prior again to your full retirement age. So whether you're 61, 62, 65, if it's before your retirement age, it's going to be less. You must also have been married for at least 9 months before your spouse passes away. Again, still 10 years if you're divorced. Here's another key thing, and it's kind of interesting. You have to remain unmarried till after the age of 60. So if your spouse passed away while you're in your 50s and you got married before age 60, you're not going to be qualified for survivor benefit. I've actually had that situation with some clients. And they had to determine whether they wanted to wait another year before they get married or lose those benefits. So the Bipartisan Act of 2015 that we talked about didn't make any changes to survivor benefits, which I think is wonderful, because widows can still restrict to only widower retirement benefits and then later switch to the other benefit. So that's important because I think survivors, or I think the government is saying that's something no one really can plan on. It's something that happens without making a decision on your own. So maximizing your lifetime and survivor benefits, it's critical, folks. It's something you really need to look at and get help in making a decision. We are living longer and longer than anyone ever expected. This was done back in 2010. And in 2010, there were 53,364 folks who made it to the age of 100. Now, guys, I got to tell you, 83% of them are women. Only 17% are men. That's because statistically, women outlive men by 5 to 10 years on the average. So life expectancy for a 65-year-old male today is 83. Life expectancy for a 65-year-old female is 85. But you know, there's a 25% chance that one of you will reach the age of 97. You know, my own family situation, I had 3 aunts that I was primary caretaker for. One is still living. My mother-in-law lived with me for 20 years. None of them ever expected to still be alive in the 90s, and yet they were. When they retired at 65, they didn't expect to live much longer than that. But with all the medical advances and things going on, we are living longer and longer. That has to be taken into consideration in your retirement planning. So let's talk a little bit about that file and restrict, just so you have an understanding, especially for those who were born before January 2nd, 1954. But it also, some of the information I'll talk about is important for everybody to look at in determining when they're going to take their own benefits. So in this situation, this case study, we're going to assume that Joe and Cindy are both the same age. They're both retiring at the same time. At age 62, Joe's benefit would be $1,675. Cindy's benefit on her own working situation would have been $681. But if they took their benefit at age 62, she's able to look at his benefit and see that 50% of his is more than her own personal benefit. So she's actually able to collect $837. If they retired at age 66 and decided to take their benefit at their full retirement age, his benefit would have increased to about $2,400. Her own personal benefit would have been $982. Again, that's less than 50% of his $2,400. So she gets to apply and get her spousal benefit of $1,208. Now, if they wait till age 70, his benefit is going to grow to over $3,400 per month. On her own personal benefit, that's $1,396. But guess what? That's what she would have to take. Why? That's not half of his $3,400, is it? Well, under the Social Security rules, her spousal benefit does not increase any more than 50% of what his benefit was at his full retirement age. Full retirement age is extremely important in all the planning that you do. So her full 50% spousal benefit, if she wanted to take it, would have been $1,208, but her own benefit is $1,396. So of course she takes the $1,396. Deemed spousal benefit. Let's take a look and say they both retired at age 66. The cumulative combined benefits, if they both lived to age 90, would be almost $1.4 million. So although they say Social Security only accounts for about 40% of our needs in retirement, that's still a lot of money. And you want to try to take as much advantage of that as possible. Now, what if Cindy, instead of taking it at age 62, decides to take her benefit at age 66? And Joe was born before January 2nd, 1954. Well, he can file what's called the restricted application and actually take half of her benefit. So if her benefit is $982, he can get 50% of that while he allows his benefit to still accumulate up to $3,434 at age 70. Now, I know some of this can be overly complicated and sound confusing, but that's why when we sit one-on-one, we can go over these situations with you in a little bit more time and explain it one-on-one, and you can ask questions, and we can hopefully give you those answers. If Joe files for his benefit then at age 70, guess what? Cindy can now go back and apply for her spousal benefit, which would have been $1,208. That means for that same time period, from age 66 to 90, they actually would have increased their benefit up to $1.545 million. You know what that is? That's an additional $152,000. That's a lot of money to leave on the table if you don't have to. please get some advice. Again, if this fits your situation, scenario, you have questions on this, write it down. Write it down because you're going to forget those things that were important to you. So there's going to be some strategies that a lot of people don't know about. And I hate to say this, but sometimes the person you go to speak with at Social Security may not know these strategies. We've often had to send people back 2 or 3 times to get it taken care of properly because a lot of the people who work at the desk may not be as informed as some of the supervisors are informed. So the do-over or reset strategy, whoops, what that allows you to do, it's a once-in-a-lifetime option. So the first year you start to receive Social Security benefits and you say, you know what, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Well, actually, what you can do is you can reverse it. You can give Social Security back the benefits that you received, both you and your spouse, and then it would start as if nothing ever happened. You can just delay it. There's even a form on the website to allow you to do that. Now, that might not be the best option for everybody, but I did have a situation where it did work for somebody. I was doing a class, and he said, I just retired and started taking my benefit. I wish I knew. So I said, how long has it been? He says, it's only been a couple of months. I said, well, you can give them back that money, and it would be just as if you never applied. There's a stop and restart strategy. It's called voluntary suspension. We've mentioned that a couple of times, and this explains it a little bit better. Again, you have to reach full retirement age or later to suspend your benefits. But you're taking your benefit, and all of a sudden you say, you know what, I want to stop that for now and allow it to accumulate. Well, you can. You can just voluntarily suspend your benefit, again, as long as you've reached your full retirement age. And while your benefits are suspended, whatever that benefit was, that's going to increase by 8% a year right up until age 70. So if it was from age 66 to age 70, that's an increase of 32% per month of your retirement benefits from Social Security. That's a lot of money. And if we live as long as we hope we're going to do, that's going to be a great benefit in retirement. It's also the benefit that most likely would be left for the surviving spouse to try to meet their lifestyle. Remember, there's no additional growth after age 70, so you don't want to wait any longer than age 70 to do that. So now what do we do? Where do we go from here? Well, will I outlive my money? You know, that seems to be the number one question that people ask me when they come in for planning or just to discuss things or whatever. Will I have enough money to last me through my lifetime, or will it run out? They say even 44% of baby boomers and Generations X are projected to lack adequate income just for their basic retirement and healthcare expenses. So determining a strategy, it's going to start with asking some questions. What's your current income needs? What do you need to live? What do you anticipate your retirement income needs will be? You know, surveys tell us that most retirees are going to need between 80 and 100% of what they're making while they're working to maintain their same lifestyle. Or adjustments can be made, but that's the general rule. And remember, Social Security covers about 40% of that. So how can you close the gap between the two? Well, it's done by planning. It's done by having a system set up so you know where you stand, you know where that money is going to come from to help fill those gaps. So let's talk a little bit about while you're working, the different avenues you had to save towards your retirement. It's called the accumulation phase of life. You may have Roth IRAs, 401ks, a number of different vehicles, qualified vehicles, that you can put money into towards your retirement years. And again, there's pros. The pros to that, you might have an employer who's actually matching some of the funds you're putting into the account. Please, folks, if you have an employer that is that generous, please put in at least what he's going to match. That's free money, money you cannot go back and get anywhere else. You do maintain some control of your account, although you're limited to the options that are available. And if it's a traditional program, it's tax deductible when contributions are made. So if you made $100,000, you put $10,000 into an IRA or a 401k, you're only going to be taxed on $90,000 for a traditional. But again, there are cons to everything that we do, right? There's a potential loss in these accounts, the market risk, and we've all seen that drastically most recently. But you know what? We've seen it in the past too, haven't we? We saw it in the year 2000. We saw it in 2003, 2007. I remember 1987 sitting at my desk, Black Tuesday, when the market went down 50% in one day. But all of those times, if things are set up properly, people have been able to recover. But you do take the risk of decisions made and income distributions. Again, it's fully taxable unless it's a Roth qualified account. And that's something else. Write that down. You want to talk to us about Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, because in this decline in the market, it's a very opportune time to possibly convert some of that traditional to a Roth and save thousands on taxable dollars over the long term and even have tax-free income coming in at retirement. There might be some defined benefit plans that somebody has. Well, they're fully funded by the employer, not you. They're often simple, and the benefit, I will say, is usually known, not always known any longer. See, there's only one plan. You don't have any say in the investment, not usually inflation adjusted, and they're fully taxable when you take them out. And truthfully, the way things are going on, we've seen, unfortunately, some defined benefit plans that haven't been able to stay fully funded enough to meet the retirees' needs. Some have actually even defaulted. You need to think about that if you have a defined benefit plan to try to make adjustments with your other assets just in case you need to fill another gap that you hope never happens or you least expect to happen. Other types of investments, dividends and interest from stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, annuities, whatever it may be. Okay, this is another way to accumulate assets towards your retirement. And you may control over those accounts. I love having control. Potential for tax advantage forms of income, long-term capital gains versus short-term capital gains. Maybe tax deferred programs where you're not being taxed on it because you're not actually receiving the interest. But taxes are also only paid on earnings. So the principal you put in, you've already paid the taxes on it. So it's only on the gain. But you do still have to pay some taxes. And again, you have that potential loss due to market risk. It's subject to reinvestment risk. And again, there's no guarantee of principal protection, growth, or income. So you take the risk of all the decisions that have to be made and when you want to start taking money out of those accounts. It's another area. Before you do that, please get some advice. Talk to somebody so you don't make an inappropriate or rash decision that could cost you unnecessary dollars. Let's talk a little bit about annuities. You probably heard a lot about them on the radio, TV. Annuities, just like every other type of vehicle, is nothing but a tool. There are different types, deferred or immediate. You need to know the differences if you decide that one of these vehicles might be a good tool within your portfolio. So there's variable, index, fixed, immediate. Well, immediate annuity, your Social Security check is an immediate annuity. Your pension plan is an immediate annuity. An immediate annuity is nothing more than a designated amount of money delivered to you over a period of time. That could be a limited period of time, as so many years, or it could be for your full lifetime, like Social Security. A fixed annuity works very similar to a CD. In other words, they will give you a guaranteed fixed rate for a number of years. We just saw one recently, 7 years, they're giving 3.5% guaranteed for that 7 year period. That's pretty darn good. Okay. Again, there are always surrender charges and penalties to CDs or annuities. So you have to take a look at that and determine if that's a type of program that meets your situation. A variable annuity is really money invested in the stock market, but wrapped in an insurance wrapper. So you have some of the insurance benefits, such as tax deferred gain on a non qualified account, but you also still have the risk of the market going up and going down. If the market does great, great, you get to participate in the full value. But if the market goes down like it has recently, your account is going to go down. An indexed annuity is like a combination of a fixed and a variable. The fixed portion is it guarantees that you will never lose a dollar of your money based on market risk. So the worst thing that could happen in that situation is get a 0% return. But if the market goes up, you get to participate in the market gains up to a capped amount. Now, you're not going to get the full return, but again, remember that the company is guaranteeing that you can't lose anything when the market goes down 10, 15, 20%, or like in 1987, 50%. So all of these are just simple tools that may or may not be something you want to consider and look at. Just make sure you know the difference before you do it, because there's a variety of different contracts. There are a variety of different companies. Make sure you understand what you're doing and get the proper advice. Again, if that's something you want to discuss with us, write it down. We'll be happy to talk with you about those types of programs, those types of products, to see if they might fit your situation. And you maintain control. And again, non-qualified, remember, it's all tax deferred. So if you don't take the interest out of it, you don't pay taxes on it, but it continues to grow. And there's no requirement for you to make a distribution. You make and determine when to or not to do that. Potential for guaranteed principal, as we said, on the fixed or indexed, principal growth, and income for life. So with these type of programs, sometimes they're a good idea to start to create your own pension plan where you have a guaranteed income coming in that can last you through your full retirement years. Something to consider, something to think about. But they also often require longer term commitments. So annuities can vary from a few years up to 15, 16 years. It all depends upon the type and the purpose of it, how it's going to meet your needs or not. Permanent life insurance is another vehicle some people use to help have retirement assets. And there you know the difference to these two. There's whole life, index universal life, term life. Well, term life is not going to help you as far as retirement goes, because basically you're renting insurance for a period of time. It can be great for a younger person who might need more insurance at a lower cost to provide for their family, but also can be somebody older who, for a period of time, might want to supplement their income for their spouse over a 10, 15, 20-year period if they were to die prematurely. Whole life, you know what that's like. You pay a premium, they have a guaranteed death benefit, and it grows cash value. Index universal life is similar to a whole life, but again, it can grow based on the market without market loss. The nice thing about these things, if you're going to use them for retirement, you control your account. And you can even take tax-free loans and withdrawals up to the cost basis of the account. So if you put in $100,000, you can actually borrow out up to $100,000 and pay no taxes on it. There's no penalty for early access. There's no required minimum distributions. So if you don't use it while you're alive, it creates a leverage, a death benefit for your heirs, for your spouse, for your children, for your grandchildren. So no matter what happens, that money can be used either for yourself or for someone else, or possibly a combination of both. It takes time to get the plan up and running, so it's not something you would do too early in life. It's something for somebody who may have a lump sum of assets that they want to consider, seeing the advantages or the pros and cons of doing something like that. Listen, the most important thing, getting ready for retirement, whether you're 5 years out, 10 years out, or 2 years out, is to have a written plan. The bucket plan is something we've initiated with some of the top elite advisors across the country. So when we do a financial plan for somebody, we want to have things separated so you know where you stand throughout your full retirement years. You want to know what you have now that's safe and liquid, that you might need for an emergency, for income for 12 months. But then you want to have money put into a conservative bucket, money you're going to be using sooner than later, with maybe some inflation protection, or something that can guarantee you income for the first portion of a retirement, regardless of excessive market risk. The long term is for growth, for legacy planning, providing for your spouse, providing for your children if that's a desire to you. All of those things are important to consider. Whether you talk to us or you talk to someone else, whatever you end up doing as far as your actual plan, please get something in writing. Know where you stand. This is the only way you can ensure yourself to have a safe, comfortable, worry-free retirement plan for your financial needs. So, we're going to give a gift to everyone who attended this. Pretty soon, Kathy is going to be giving each of you a call for the second part of the class, and she'll schedule a time with you where we can speak one-on-one. We'll take 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes to answer any questions you have about the things we talked about on Social Security or any other subject you might want to talk about. And those of you do that, we're going to give you this free bucket plan book written by a very good friend of mine, Jason Smith. I actually did the preface for the book. And with Jason, myself, a number of elite advisors, we created this bucket plan, which is trademarked. And it's a very easy read. And it helps to show people that retirement planning can be not easy, but it can be simple if done properly. And you can really have a great understanding of where you're at now, soon, and later. So again, I want to thank you for the time. We're right on time. We're not too far off. Maybe a little bit longer than I planned. I get to talk a little bit too much, and Keith, I'm sure, is saying, "John, get off." So we're going to let you go for right now. But very soon, Kathy, or Jackie it might be, will give you a call and schedule that Zoom one-on-one introductory call at no charge. There's no fees or anything to that. This is all part of the class that we're providing today. So please stay safe, stay happy, and we'll hopefully talk to you very soon. Have a wonderful day.